My alarm rings at 5:30 a.m. I dress in the dark, checking my uniform with mechanical precision, an old dress, worn shoes, patched backpack. On the street, my heart races as I approach the bus stop. The restaurant supervisor pulls up in a company car and gives me a disdainful glance. I hear her inner voice. She still takes the bus, a low, calm, cutting tone. Trucks spray dust at me. Some classmates from college giggle and whisper as they watch me. They have no idea I've endured this for months. These mornings became a monotonous ritual of silent humiliation. I was there, but invisible. Until that one day, when a different kind of gaze followed me across the street, while I boarded bus 32. A stranger watched me in silence, no mockery. Something shifted. I work at an upscale downtown restaurant. Black uniform, spotless apron. But I arrive before sunrise, set tables, memorize orders. Customers arrive, some important, others indifferent, and I smile. It's my mask of resistance. Yet the team sees me as incompetent, without knowing my effort. The supervisor still mutters, "She shouldn't even be here." In my breaks, I race to college, notes in hand, eyes tired. I bring a simple snack, usually just bread and egg. Once, a wealthy classmate sneered, "You don't even have decent shoes. How do you expect to be someone?" It stung, but hardened me. The only moment I didn't feel invisible was when he walked in, dark suit, calm posture, observant eyes. He said nothing, smiled, and left a tip that changed everything. At shift's end, he stayed reading at his table, sipping coffee. When I cleared the dishes, he slid an envelope across the plate, the tip enclosed. Inside, a note, "You deserve to be treated like a queen." My jaw dropped. My hands shook, heart pounding. I wondered, have I been wrong about everything? I replayed every detail, his discreet smile, the note. I snapped a photo of the envelope underneath the table. Years of self-doubt taught me to distrust. What if it was fake? But something inside said it wasn't. That night, I showed it to my sick mother. She smiled with teary hope. The next day, I got a message from him, "Can we talk?" I replied cautiously, "I don't understand, but I'll try." We met for coffee at a simple, unpretentious cafe, far from the glam I had imagined. He arrived walking, in a plain shirt and jeans. For hours, he listened as I spoke of my life, a sick mother at home, pay-as-you-go college, unpaid bills. He didn't show pity. He said, "Your strength inspires me." I shared about the bus stop, the humiliation, how I felt invisible. He didn't try to fix it. Just listened. But then I bristled. I don't need another rich man to pity me while flirting. He took a deep breath. "It's not about what I have. It's about how I see you." I kept my distance the next days. I needed to process that I was allowing hope again. He disappeared for 7 days. Silence hit me like a blow. Back to the bus, the restaurant, the invisibility routine. I rationalized, this was a mistake. But on the 7th day, I found a handwritten invitation slipped into my college notebook, "Come with me today. Don't ask questions. Just trust." My pulse soared. I thought of every humiliation, whispers at the stop, the supervisor, the restaurant. Yet something told me, this was the moment to change it all. I chose to trust. That blend of fear and courage filled me. I closed the book, took a deep breath and sent, "I'm coming." He was waiting in a black car, elegant but unflashy, with a driver. We didn't speak. The ride was long. We left the city and followed a road lined with tall trees. When the iron gate opened, I realized we were on a private estate. A mansion stood tall, modern, and imposing. My heart beat like an alarm. "Is this a hotel?" I asked. He just smiled. Inside, everything was refined. Grand piano. Spiral staircase. Framed art. But what shook me was when he said, "This is where I grew up." My knees almost buckled. He was rich. Very rich. And he'd hidden it all this time. I stepped onto the balcony for air. The view was of a private lake. I sat on a marble bench and asked, "Why did you lie to me?" "I didn't lie. I just waited for you to see me as a man, not an heir." There was no arrogance in his tone. Just truth. And a subtle fear of losing me. For the first time, I saw he was vulnerable too. We had dinner that night. No servants. He cooked. Simple pasta, cheap red wine, on purpose. We barely spoke. The tension lingered. I still didn't understand why someone like him would choose someone like me. "You know how many people talk to me without thinking about my last name?" he asked as he stirred the sauce. "You know how many see me as just a trophy?" I said nothing. For the first time, I realized he was tired of being reduced too. After dinner, we walked through the library. He showed me his father's old diary, filled with business notes. I don't want to repeat what he built. I want to build something different. With someone who knows the value of every cent. I looked at him and said, voice trembling, "I'm not charity." He held my hand tightly. "I know. That's why I'm choosing you." I returned to the city 2 days later. Bus, restaurant, college, the routine tried to reclaim me. But I walked taller. Looked people in the eye. And that bothered them. The supervisor glanced at me suspiciously. "Did you change your hair? You seem too confident." I just smiled. At college, one of the girls who used to ignore me whispered, "The poor girl's wearing imported perfume now. Dreaming big, huh?" I didn't respond. But inside, something was growing. I knew my story was changing. And soon, those who dismissed me would have nowhere to hide. 3 weeks later, he invited me to dinner. Said he had something to show me. I thought it'd be another symbolic gesture. But it was a ring. In a velvet box. And the words that changed everything. "Marry me?" No pressure. No spotlight. Just us. But one day, with the whole world watching, I trembled. My survival instincts screamed, "You don't belong in this world." But my heart shouted louder, "You built everything on your own. Now you get to choose who shares it." I said yes. With tears. With fear. But with all the courage I'd been storing since my first bus ride. The company gala arrived. He was a director. I went with him. Red dress, soft makeup, firm heels. We walked in holding hands. Silence. The same people who once saw me serving drinks now stared in disbelief. The restaurant hostess recognized me. Froze. A former customer whispered, "Isn't she the waitress?" Yes. I was. But now I was the fiancé of the man who owned the holding company. A manager tried to greet me coldly. "Welcome, ma'am." I smiled. "Just call me a client. Today, I choose how I arrive, and who I arrive with." That was the moment I understood, their contempt had built my dignity. After that gala, my name started circling among those who once ignored me. I was invited to a charity dinner with executives, politicians, and classmates. I considered skipping it, but he said, "You need to be there. Not for me. For you." We arrived discreetly, but not invisibly. A former professor approached. "You're the girl from the restaurant, right?" What a surprise. I replied firmly. "I've always been the girl from the restaurant. But now I'm also an investor in the chain." He choked. A girl who once mocked me hugged me with fake excitement. "We always knew you'd make it big." I looked her in the eye and said gently, "No. You never knew." But I did. And that was enough. That dinner taught me, the loudest power isn't spoken. It's shown, by simply being where no one expected you to be. On my birthday, he gave me what looked like a small gift, a box with a key. "This is yours now," he said. I thought it was symbolic. It wasn't. It was the deed to an entire apartment, in my name. I cried. Tried to say no. I don't want to be dependent on anyone. You're not. This isn't a gift. It's recognition. But that key brought more than comfort, it attracted opportunists. Old friends asked for loans. Distant relatives resurfaced with fake affection. Even my former boss messaged me. I always saw your potential. Let's talk about a special position. I deleted it. I realized success draws attention, but dignity filters who stays. One day, I returned to the bus stop where it all began. Same time. Same sounds. I saw a girl sitting where I used to cry. Same worn backpack. Same tired eyes. I sat next to her. She glanced at me, then quickly looked away. Rough day? I asked. She nodded. I handed her an envelope. Inside, 6 months of bus fare and a note. Don't stop. You have no idea what you're building right now. She didn't know who I was. And that was perfect. Because that day, I didn't come back rich. I came back whole. And in peace. Our wedding was intimate, with no excess. But invitations were sent. Some ignored them. Others came for show. But the one who made sure not to show up was my old supervisor. The night before, she sent a message. I'm sure you're happy now. Just remember, elegance can't be bought. I said nothing. The next day, I walked down the aisle with a calm smile. Simple dress. Steady steps. And a truth, that woman, who once humiliated me, would never step foot where my heart had arrived. It would have been easy to expose her. But my revenge was quieter, live well. And never again need to prove anything to anyone. Months after the wedding, he called me in for a meeting. It was about a new social project funded by him, but led by me. I want you to decide where to invest. And how. The money passes through your hands now. I signed the contract with shaking hands. Not because of the numbers, but the meaning. This was more than paper. It was proof I was no longer a spectator in my story. I left the meeting, sat in the car, same driver, same calm, but now heading to a future I'd built myself. And I thought, that bus, the one that once humiliated me, taught me to never forget where I come from. Or where anyone else does. Years later, I returned to the restaurant where I once worked as a waitress. Not as a high-profile client, but as one of the silent investors behind its new ownership. The hostess, who used to glance through me, didn't recognize me at first. She led me to the best table. I ordered the simplest dish on the menu. When I finished, I called the manager. Do you know who I am? I asked. He tensed. Whispered to the hostess. She went pale. You were the morning shift girl. I was. And today, I'm just someone who believes no one should be judged by the uniform they wear. I left a generous tip and a note on the plate. Treat everyone as if they might secretly own the place. Sometimes, they do. An old college classmate reached out. The same one who mocked my accent during presentations, saying I sounded too poor for business. He now wanted me to invest in his startup. You were always hardworking. I saw your potential. Just needed the chance, right? I took a breath. Almost laughed. You didn't see potential. You saw inferiority. And you mistook it for a lack of future. He chuckled, pretending it was all harmless. But I no longer played in his world. Today, I don't lack opportunity. I lack the patience to entertain people who still think validation comes from above. I stood up, wished him well, and walked away. Whole. Free. At peace. Months later, I got a notification. A distant relative had died, leaving me a portion of the inheritance for the girl who came from nothing. It was meant to be symbolic. But it felt insulting. A gesture from someone who never helped, trying to seem generous posthumously. I met with the lawyer, heard the details, then said, donate it. All of it. To a project for girls like me, but without the label from nothing. He looked stunned. Are you sure? It's a sizable amount. I'm sure. My story didn't begin with anyone's death. It began the day I stopped accepting the place they assigned me. My car is armored now. The driver is the same one who once worked for my husband. But today, he calls me ma'am with a genuine smile. I passed the old bus stop recently. Same curb. Same marks. Same tired faces. I parked. Sat and watched. One girl noticed me. Looked curious. I rolled down the window and asked. Headed somewhere? College. Then work. Maybe one day, who knows? I smiled. You'll get there. Just keep going. Especially when they try to make you stop. She didn't know me. And that was perfect. Because the most beautiful part of my story is that it now belongs to others too. Today, my life is public. But my heart is not. I have titles, investments, social projects. But what drives me isn't status. It's memory. I remember every whispered joke at the restaurant. Every look of disguised pity. Every step taken in shame over my shoes. But I also remember the first time someone saw me. The first sentence that made me feel whole. You deserve to be treated like a queen. Yes, I did. I always did. I just needed time, courage, and silence. Because sometimes, the loudest victory is never needing to explain yourself again.